Hello everybody, Lotu for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new video, and today we have the look at the Abhyss. Okay, I like this pun, Konami. This is actually a good pun for once. The Abhyss archetype from Ancient Guardians, which is probably going to be our first really good reptile archetype, which is unfortunate because there's like 5 before this. Because let's see here, there's Venom, Reptilian, Aliens, Worms. Is there another one? I feel like I'm missing one. Venom, Reptilian, Aliens, Worms. I feel like I'm missing one. But I also don't feel like I am. There's at least 4 archetypes before this that are reptiles. And this one is shaping up to be the best. And for multiple reasons. For one thing, they're a chaos archetype, light and dark. Wonderful. And they have some very interesting utility things. I did take a peek at it. This is not going to be a reaction discussion video. This is just going to be me reading the cards and giving my thoughts on it kind of video. And that's mostly because curiosity was killing me. I did not think I would actually get to record this video for at least another day or two, because I should technically be at work right now, but it snowed, and so I don't have work. They called it off. So yay. But there is that, so fun stuff and all that fun stuff. Anyway, so I'm still waking up too, darn it. I gotta go shovel snow, that's why I'm doing this early. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take a look at No Drag of the Abhyss. Light Reptile Effect Monster, level 4/0/0. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, send one dark reptile from your deck to the graveyard. By the way, they do have a dark that does the opposite, where you send it from your hand to the graveyard, send one light reptile from your deck to the graveyard. So right off the bat, we have 2 monsters in this archetype that can send the opposite attribute to the graveyard. And it instantly loads up your graveyard for a chaos special summon, using, summoning out like BLS or something like that. That is unthinkable previously, and yet they're doing it. Now, weirdly enough, despite being a chaos kind of archetype, the boss monsters do not have like the standard chaos effect. In fact, actually, the boss monsters is probably the intended target for these guys, because, well, the boss monsters can special summon themselves from the graveyard. As to whether or not people actually do it like that, we'll have to wait and see. If you control no monsters, or if you control an Abhyss monster, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. You cannot special summon monsters while this card special summoned by this effect is in the monster zone, except for reptile monsters. And that's kind of going to be how they're going to balance this out, because otherwise this deck would be a bit too silly. Is that they're going to lock you into reptiles. However, there are ways around it. Like, for instance, this guy does not lock you into it permanently doing that. He only does it while he's on the field. So you're going to get rid of him, and then you're not going to be locked into reptiles anymore. On that other note, I love this artwork. All these cards are beautiful. I love snakes in general. They're such such cool animals, and it's always sucked that we didn't have a good snake archetype for so long. Next up, we got Nihil, or Nihil, kind of like Nihilus. Drag of the Abhyss, Dark Reptile Effect Monster, level 4/0/2000. Reminds me of the Reptilian Guard now, with a 0/2000. You can only use this card's name's first and second effects once per turn each. Again, this guy is the opposite of Null, where he can dump himself to send a light. And then, if this card is no more special, you can add one Abhyss monster from your deck to your hand. Pardon me. I'm going to be 100% honest, guys. The spells and traps for this archetype are a bit disappointing right now. There is real opportunity for them to get really good ones later on, but right now the spells and traps are kind of disappointing. But it is nice that they have a searcher for it, but really 10 out of 10, well, 9 out of 10 times you're going to be stitching this guy to, well, get your lights in the graveyard. Not so much normal summoning it, or even special summoning it to be able to do the thing. My only real complaint with this card is that he doesn't also have a way to special summon himself from the graveyard like Null does. That would have been really cool, but oh well. Can't have it all, so hey, we got a searcher at least for the spells. There is a searcher for the monsters if my memory serves, and it's not as good, which kind of sucks. Next up we got flogy Haze of the Abhyss. This thing looks less like a snake and more like a jackal. It just reminds me of like Jackal Knights or something. I don't know. Anyways, level 4 light reptile effect monster for 1800 attack, 1400 defense. You'll use each of its effects once per turn. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, or special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and one monster in their graveyard with an equal or higher attack. Special summon the target in the opponent's graveyard, and if you do, send the target they control to the graveyard. Now, and then let me just go and read the second effect, and we'll talk about the first effect again. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, add this card to your hand, which is pretty cool. You can get them to your hand a bit easier. Not that he does anything, you know, whenever he's normal summoned, but it is there. So, this first effect doesn't make much sense until you start talking about the boss monsters, but basically it helps them proc off, where some of the boss monsters do things if your opponent spell summons from the graveyard, so you can do that, and it also allows you to get rid of combo pieces or anything like that. It reminds me a lot of the original Wild Heart fusion with Avian, I think it was. No, it was, oh god, what was it? It was one of the Wild Heart fusions. I can't remember which one. Wild Heart. No. Oh, it was Necroid Shaman. Yeah. Whenever it's spell summon, you can target a monster upon controls, destroy that target, and spell summon another monster. Yeah, this card reminds me a lot of Necroid Shaman, where it does something similar, but it's a bit better, actually, and because it helps the boss monsters proc off, it's not horrible. So, it is a nice little way of removal. I don't know how many people would actually play in the deck, so we'll have to just wait and see what's going to happen with it. Next up, we got Zoha Haze of the Abhyss. This one actually does look like a snake, so yay. Like, you can't give a snake legs. It's not a snake anymore. Like, why did they do that with Haze? Oh, my game crashed. Darn it, that's annoying. Got Azure Lane playing in the background trying to do my dailies. Anyway, so Zoha Haze of the Abhyss. 1500 attack, 1700 defense. You can only use this card's name's first and second effects once per turn each. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard or special from the graveyard, you can have your opponent draw one card, and if they do, you add one Abhyss monster from your deck to your hand, except Zoha Haze of the Abhyss. Then each player sends one card from their hand to the graveyard. And then he has the same recursion effect as Flogy, where he can discard a card and you can add it to your hand. So, this is really, really nice. This thing is basically a better version of, oh god, what was it called? Dark World Dealings, where, you know how with Dark World Dealings, both players would discard and then both players would draw. This card makes it so that your opponent draws a card. You get to add any Abhyss monster from your deck to your hand that you want, and then you both send a card from your hand to the graveyard. Does not discard, which is a very important factor there, which I will be honest, I kind of hate. Because then you can't mix this with dangers, but probably for the better. They probably did that on purpose, but I digress. This card is really, really good for the deck, and again will help the deck proc off on certain things. So, really, really nice. I'm going to go ahead and close out those. Really cool artwork, too, with this guy as well. At least he looks like a snake. Fluggy. Then we got Cursed Dawn of the Abhyss. He's a level 8 reptile effect monster, 400 attack, 2400 defense. It reminds me a lot of Phenomenon King of the Serpents, I think is what he was called. King of Poisonous Snakes, that's what he was called. Just because of the stats and everything in the level. And so anyways, Cursed Dawn of the Abhyss, light reptile effect monster, level 8, 424. You only use the first and second effect once per turn. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute one monster. Spell summon this card, then your opponent can spell summon one monster from their graveyard to their field, but its effects negated. Again, this will help proc off some of the boss monsters over here whenever we get to them. If this card is spell summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Abhyss monster in your graveyard, spell summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. Really good card all around. Not going to worry about the banishing part too much because you're going to be able to get around that. But this does trigger Flogy and Zoha's special summon effects, which is really, really nice. So there is that. On top of that, you can also use this guy for combos and everything. It's just really good. This deck has a lot of level 8s, so I get the feeling rank 8s and rank 4s are going to be like the main way to go, especially since you want to play Feral Imp. I can't remember. I think it's called King of Feral Imps. Duh. Pharaoh. Yeah, it's King of the Pharaoh Imps. Yeah, you want to play this guy. So yeah, this is going to be very helpful with doing that. Next up, we got Aleph, Dusk of the Abhyss, who, oh my god, I love this thing's artwork. This makes me want to fight it in like Dragon's Dogma or something. It looks so cool. He's a level 8 dark reptile effect monster, 2k 800. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute a dude, spell summon this dude. Then your opponent can add one monster from their graveyard to their hand. Again, that's all about proccing stuff off. If this card is special summon, you can target 2 of your banished monsters, including at least 1 reptile monster, return to the graveyard. So you do have ways of course, recurring your graveyard and banishing stuff. This guy, you're probably not going to play as many of as Curse, but you definitely want to play at least one of to be able to recycle your banished dudes. Next up, we got Aaron, or Aaron. Calling him Aaron just reminds me of a friend of mine, or I guess not so much of a friend of mine, but anyways, Aaron, or Aaron, I don't know. Somebody tell me what the correct way to pronounce this is. I'm just going to go with Aaron. No, that sounds boring. Aaron, King of the Abhyss. Reptile effect monster, level 8, 2500 attack, 2800 defense. You can only use each of his effects once per turn. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters, spell summon this card. See, remember how I said you mainly want to get your boss monsters in the graveyard with the little dude's effects to discard? So tribute 2, spell summon this dude. If your opponent adds a card to their hand, except during the draw phase, you can send 1 random card from their hand to the graveyard. See, it helps proc off. Oh, hey, I summon Aleph while I already have Aaron out, and then my opponent gets to add a monster from their graveyard to their hand. Oh, Aaron effect, discard a random card. Well, send a random card. So, yeah, sure, you could hit the monster they just added, or you might be able to hit their Harpy's Feather Duster, their Regeki, their, I don't know, Ash Blossom, you know, stuff like that. That's really, really handy, and especially since this triggers off of any time they add, you know, not just adding from like deck to hand, but adding from graveyard to hand, adding from banish to hand, stuff like that. I just wish this deck had more quick effects. They have like no quick effects, and that's very annoying. So yeah, there is that, and is pretty cool. If a monster your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, like for instance with this first one, you can add 1 light or dark reptile monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except Aaron, King of the Abhyss. All around a pretty good card. I love his artwork. He's very imposing in the like looks department. Again, they gave him legs, which immediately doesn't make him a snake anymore. But hey, at least it looks cool. He's like a kind of reminds me of like a centaur or arachne or something. And then we got the Queen of the Abhyss, who does not have legs, who is still a snake. Hey, cool. Good on you. So we got Amnesia, Queen of the Abhyss, Dark Reptile Effect, level 8, 27, 21. Only each of the 3 effects once per turn. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute 2 dudes, special summon this card. If a monster is special from your opponent's graveyard, you can send 1 card they control to the graveyard. Again, proccing off your other stuff. If a monster is sent from your opponent's hand or deck to the graveyard, you can spell summon 1 light or dark reptile monster from your graveyard, except Amnesia, Queen of the Abhyss. Again, a really good boss monster all around. Ideally, you want to try and get these 2 out simultaneously as soon as possible, and then be able to start proccing off of summoning Aleph and Dusk over and over and over and over. Sorry, Aleph and Curse over and over and over. Which would be really, really good, while also totally, well, wrecking whatever your opponent's trying to do whenever they do their stuff on their turn. This feels like a going first archetype for sure, but however, I don't like how there's so few quick effects in the deck so far. Then we get to their God card, which they gave this deck a God card, which I love. It's so cool. Boy, this thing looks amazing. It's got, like, probably my favorite design out of the archetype. But it's also arguably the worst card in the archetype in some ways, which is a bit annoying. So, YgoAmino, a deity of the Abhyss, light reptile effect monster, level 10, 31, 22. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute 3 monster spells from this card. Once while this face-up card is on the field, you can send all monsters on the field to the graveyard except face-up monsters that were spell summoned from the graveyard. So this is basically a field nuke once while it's on the field as a quick effect. This is really cool, and I would still play one of it in the deck no matter what, because that is a very powerful effect. But you don't want to draw into them because there's not a lot of ways to get them out of your hand other than, what was it, Haze? Yeah, Zoha, and then maybe... No, I don't think Flogy does it. Well, these two will get them in the graveyard with their second effects, but this is just not particularly great for having to tribute 3 monsters for. Yeah, sure, he's a quick effect field nuke, and I guess the idea is that then you can tribute him with the smaller guys, get him back in the graveyard, then summon him a second time and a third time, but how are you going to get the resources for that over and over? It's a shame, because this card is really, really, really cool looking. I love its design. It's so pretty. Okay, moving on, we got the field spell Depths of the Abhyss. So far the only spell card in the archetype, which is unfortunate. And I really, really hope they do get more, because it's unfortunate that this is the only spell card. I mean, they do have Snake Rain, so there is that, but, like, jeez. Okay, so Depths of the Abhyss. Field spell, you can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn. Each first effect of a face-up reptile you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's graveyard. Or an opponent's effect. You can target one card your opponent controls, send it to graveyard. Okay. If this card is in your... basically, if a reptile you control is destroyed, you can target a dude, send it to graveyard. Once per turn, not the greatest, but hey, it's cool. If this card is in your field zone, destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can send cards on the top of your opponent's deck to the graveyard equal to the number of reptile monsters with different names in your graveyard. That can rack up pretty quick, especially if you're mixing this with other reptile decks, which I think is going to be a way to play it. I don't think it's going to be like the meta way to play it, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. This card is probably not going to see any play whatsoever. This needed a third effect that did something else, like search on activation or send on activation. Both of these are bonus utility effects that you would see on a better field spell that has something that activates immediately. Which is a shame, because this thing has really cool artwork. It's making me go, oh, where do these things live? Like, clearly it's in the Abhyss. But, like, what is the Abhyss? Where is this? Is this having anything to do with the Abyss that mentioned in the lore of the Dogmatica and stuff like that? That's a question that probably never going to be answered. But still really cool card art, at least. Then we got Emptiness of the Abhyss, a continuous trap card. I think it's supposed to be the king and the queen there. It's really hard to tell. Maybe it's an unknown card yet to be revealed. Continuous trap. During the main phase, you can tribute one reptile monster, then target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, spell summon it to your field, but send it to the graveyard during the end phase. So yeah, doesn't like negate its effects or anything, which is pretty mean. If this face-up card in spell and trap card zone is sent to the graveyard, send all face-up non-reptile monsters you control to the graveyard. Yeah, I don't see this getting played at all, like, either. And then we got the trap card that will probably be played. Invasion of the Abhyss, normal trap card. Really cool artwork here. You can only activate one card to this card's name per turn, and it has one simple effect. Spell summon 2 Abhyss tokens, Reptile Dark, level 2, attack 0, defense 0, and then if you have 8 or more Abhyss monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can apply this effect instead. Spell summon 2 reptiles with different names from your graveyard. Cool. You're mainly going to want to use that second effect, and it's just not going to... You need 8 different ones. So it's here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 9 Abhyss monsters. You need at least 8 of them in the graveyard to be able to spell summon 2 dudes from your graveyard. I was really hoping this would be a fusion deck or something, but it's not. You know, like, how cool would it be if this was a fusion monster with a different effect and they had, like, a fusion spell to search off of Zoha. Flogy. This deck is honestly very underwhelming to me. I'm going to be honest. It's got a lot good going for it, but it's also got a lot of bad. Like, there's just not much in the spell and tracker department. It won't surprise me one bit if nobody plays any of them, other than maybe like one invasion. The boss monster, like the boss, is very I don't want to call it bad, but it's not good either. It's not amazing. It's not like a boss that you want to tribute 3 monsters to summon for. And then you got the king and queen, who are both good, but like you need to do so much to really be able to capitalize off of them. Now, what's going to make this deck? There's going to be 2 things that's going to make or break this deck. And that's going to be its synergy with past Reptile archetypes, and or its synergy as a Chaos deck, and how good it can compete with the good Chaos decks, like Thunder Dragon and stuff. That's yet to be seen. I don't think this is on Ygopro yet. Let me see. Abhyss. Yeah, it's not. So let's go ahead and quickly take a look at some past Reptile support that will be very, very, very helpful for this deck. First and foremost is Snake Rain. Snake Rain is amazing. You discard 1 card, send 4 reptiles from your deck to the graveyard. Very, very good card. Okay, you discard one of your Abhyss, and then you send 4 more to the graveyard, or whatever other reptiles that you want. Next up, there's the Venom archetype. Honestly, if you want to go to Venom route, like with mixing this with other like reptile decks, you're pretty much just going to be making it Phenomenon and Phenomenaga Turbo, because the rest of Venom archetypes very, very outdated and not good, and solely focused on their theme, which is of course Venom counters, which will kill your dudes as well. And there are some interesting parts of it that are really cool, like Venom's Shot, which is basically a Fool's Burial, but you gotta control a Venom monster or one of the boss monsters. So yeah, it's not particularly great. I'm probably gonna mess with this myself just because I want to try and get out Phenomenaga. Speaking of Phenomenaga, there is also, let's see here, there it is, Offering to the Snake Deity. This card is a card to consider for this archetype. This is basically, oh god, what was it called? Icarus Attack, but for reptiles. Target a face-up reptile you control, and 2 cards your opponent controls, destroy all 3 targets. Very, very good card for this deck. There is also Snake Deity's Command, but this requires you to play more, Venom monsters. It's a counter trap. Whenever your opponent activates a spell card, you reveal a Venom monster, negate, and destroy that spell. Yeah, again, I don't see the Venom route being particularly great. Now then, the Reptilian route will be a bit better, but still not particularly great. Reptilians did get a new support card in Lamia, who is really, really good, and they got some things going for them that might make them useful, but really not much. They do have a pretty cool Link 2, which is nice, but it's not particularly great. There's better options. But, however, Reptilians do have several things going for them big time, which, first and foremost, they have Reptilian Spawn, where you banish a Reptilian from your graveyard, spell summon 2 Reptilian tokens to your side of the field. Not once per turn, and it's basically what Invasion of the Abhyss does, but, however, in spell form. So there's that, and that is a big plus to playing the Reptilians. Not to mention they're dark, except for one being water, because he's a turtle. But they're mostly dark, so therefore you can send in a graveyard with your dudes effect and all that. It's going to be something I'm going to have to tinker around with to really see. And then they did have, there's that. That's just kind of there for fun stuff. But there's a spell card that came out with this deck that has a Reptilian on it, and I don't remember what it's called, and it's driving me nuts. Oh well, we'll pop it up. It'll pop up whenever I search for reptile stuff. Then you got aliens. Aliens are probably going to be one of the better ones to go with to mix them up. They have a lot of support. They got some really good support recently in... oh god, where is it? It didn't pop up. That's annoying. Oh, that's right, because it's got the... It's a cell. No. Cell. There we go. They got a cell combination device where you basically dump an alien to the graveyard, and then you get a bunch of A counters on that, and then you can banish it from your graveyard to add an alien monster from your deck to your hand. Except the turn it was sent there, which is very, very annoying, but hey, you got that. And then you got some other cool stuff that aliens can do. The biggest thing is that they have their really awesome boss monster in Cosmic Horror Golgar. Cosmic Fortress Golgar, who can bounce all your continuous spells and traps and distribute A counters, and then you can get rid of 2 A counters to pop a card. and that's really cool. They also have a pretty decent Link monster and Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. And hey, if you go with this route, you can play Rescue Rabbit to get Shock Trooper out on the field to make the new Shock Trooper. So you got tons of different interesting ideas with this deck. You also got like Mysterious Triangle, which is a free special summon if you pop one of your opponent's monsters that has an A counter. All that fun stuff. So this is one that is going to be one to look at. So there is that fun thing. But then there's Worms, and Worms will probably be one of the better ones to mix them with. Mostly because King and Queen are still really good monsters for the most part. And, I mean, it's the smallest engine. With really X and maybe Carteros if you want to play him. Yagin is the big one. X and Yagin, because X can send Yagin a graveyard. Then Yagin can special summon himself. And then you got that control aspect. And then, of course, the big thing is, of course... Oh, yeah, you got Room Calling, too, which is pretty helpful, but not incredibly good. But the big thing is, of course... Oh, God, what was it? Nebula... W Nebula Meteorite. Change all face-down monsters on field to face-up defense position. During the end phase of this turn, change all face-up light reptile monsters you control to face-down defense position, then draw one card for each. After that, you can special summon one level 7 or higher light reptile from your deck. This card will, of course, summon out, if you're playing the reptile, I mean the worm version, you could summon out King or Queen. Or if you're playing this, you could cheese out Abhyss, who, well, will not have his effect, because... Oh, wait. No, he will have his effect, because he doesn't care if he was special summoned from the graveyard. Of course, it'll send him to the graveyard, but there's that. But then you could also summon out Aaron, the King of the Abhyss. So you got two really good targets out of the Abhyss archetype for this card. And you got two really good targets out of the Worm archetype with this card. So there is that. Now let's go ahead and look at some other good reptile support, because reptiles have a lot of support. I say that, but really they don't. Oh boy, so let's see here. First and foremost, obviously there's Snake Rain, Reptilian Spawn, we've talked about those. Viper's Rebirth, that's the card I was thinking of. Activate only if you control all... If all monsters in your graveyard are reptile, and you select one on-tuner in your graveyard, special summon it, destroy it during the end phase. So, yeah, pretty good card all around. It's basically, well, Monster Reborn. Not going to be good in the mixed build if like you're going with just a standard Chaos thing. Then there is Attack Pheromones, but that's not particularly good. Then you got Snake Whistle. Actually, only if a reptile you control is destroyed, special summon a level 4 or lower reptile monster from your graveyard, deck. That's pretty cool. And then damage equals reptile. If you take battle damage, special summon a reptile with less attack than the damage you took. Yeah, there's not a lot going for reptiles, which is unfortunate. So really, Snake Rain and Viper's Rebirth, and then Reptilian Spawn and Venom Shot only if you're playing their respective archetypes mixed with them, and then of course the alien stuff, which for some reason doesn't pop up half the time whenever I search it. There is some other things like in the OCG, but none of them are particularly great either. So yeah, this deck doesn't have a lot going for it in terms of like just outside support, but however, I have hopes mainly because of good old Chaos. Oh boy. Yeah, this deck is going to be a Chaos deck through and through. As to whether or not it'll be a good Chaos deck, we'll have to wait and see, but however, it's just a matter of time. I'm sure somebody has already thought of some stupid broken combo or something. I haven't. I see this more as a grindy deck that wants to like outgrind your opponents, so there's that. But I digress. What do you guys think? Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. And please rate, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you'd like. It helps me out every little bit. See y'all later. Peace out. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider rating, commenting, and subscribing. Sharing the video helps as well. If you especially really like it, please do consider being a channel member. Every little bit helps out. And hey, also why not check me out on my other social media pages. Thank you, and have a great day.